Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
The Stock Movers Podcast, your roundup of companies making moves in the stock market, harnessing the power of Bloomberg data.
Let's take a look at some of the stocks on the move today here in Europe. I'm Caroline Hepker with Stephen Carroll, and we're joined by Bloomberg's equities reporter Joe Easton. Good morning, Joe. So Vestas in Copenhagen worried about winds of change in the US government.
Yes, winds of change indeed. So this is news coming from the US last night that the Senate Republicans are proposing a bill that ends tax credits for wind and solar energy earlier than expected. So these tax credits would actually end in 2028. People had been hoping that these tax credits would actually last for potentially the next decade. So it is a sooner than expected end to those credits. Kind of been a back and forward on this over the past few months, with a pushback from the Democrats and then Republicans in the House initially proposing some harsher measures. But it's this news from the Senate that potentially these are going to end by 2028. And we're seeing Vestas, as you mentioned, that one's down 3%. Orsted as well. Nordex down 3%. SMA Solar, I'm running through them as I try and think of a wind pun.
A chill wind is blowing through these stocks.
Yes, I was going to say they're getting a second wind, but that would be if they were up. They're down, so that doesn't work. But the wind stocks are lower today.
Okay, let's turn next to a risky bet being made by Apollo.
Yes, so Apollo is offloading around $1 billion worth of stock in a company called Lottomatica, which is an Italian betting company, and it does the lottery over in Italy. So it's a huge sale, one of the biggest we've seen for many months. So we got news of that last night, but it wasn't the only one. We got a swathe of share placings, keeping all our equity capital markets editors really busy. They haven't got up for air at the moment because we've got deals coming from Universal Music, a stake sell, an investor there, obviously capitalising on all of Taylor Swift's records. Allied Irish Bank, the Bank of Ireland, is exiting that stake that it's held.
The Irish government rather than the Bank of Ireland. So we're not confusing our commercial banks in Ireland. So this is the aftermath of the collapse of the Irish banking sector in around 2010. The last stake, they had 2.9% of the Irish state held 2.9% of AIB that is being sold off now by the Irish state. So it'll be that bank returning to full private ownership.
See, this is why you have an Irishman on hand to run you through
who
this.
Just has a lot of Irish banking knowledge in the top of his head at all times.
So the Irish government, absolutely right. The Irish government should say selling the shares in AIB, and then there was a couple of other smaller ones in companies like Amadeus, which is over in travel, and Corby and another one. So a swathe of deals. I think the market was a bit higher yesterday, so it was kind of a good time to sell off some of that stock.
Well, listen, I'll one-up you then on your banking knowledge. Do you remember this slogan? The bank that likes to say yes?
Oh, yeah.
TSB. There you go. Banco Sabadell is considering the sale of its UK unit, TSB.
Yes. No, that's excellent background. I don't quite remember that one, I don't think. But Sabadell, anyway, selling, it's potentially considering selling TSB. So this is the UK unit. This is as the company tries to bat away BBVA, which is, of course, trying to take it over. So it's kind of a bit of a defensive move. There is actually some good commentary out today from JP Morgan saying they could see consolidation in UK banks because a lot of these smaller firms are going to start seeing their mortgage rate and mortgage earnings coming down as the Bank of England cuts rates, making them ripe for takeovers. So this kind of feeds into that. And interesting news, Sabadell, SAB actually 1% lower this morning.
The Stock Movers Podcast from Bloomberg Radio. Check back with us throughout the day for the latest roundup of companies making news on Wall Street. And for the latest market-moving headlines, listen to Bloomberg Radio live. Catch us on YouTube, Bloomberg.com, and on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.